Hello, and welcome to The Source, your guide to keeping pace with the growing challenges of compliant communications. Communications channels are evolving in near real time, and compliance teams are faced with the challenges of keeping up. Firms are under increasing pressure to make sure they're capturing all their communications channel data to remain compliant. Thank you for joining us today, Vince. Could you give us a little bit of background on your role at LSEG and how you came to work there?
Yes, sure. Thanks, Jay. And first of all, thanks for having me here. I spent more than 20 years close to financial markets, covering several key roles in Reuters first, and then Thomson Reuters, Refinitiv, and now with London Stock Exchange Group. Throughout my career, I've always been working with the biggest financial market, the foreign exchange one, and worked with its global community of traders and sales with a focus on trading paradigms, changes in the market structure, and on the evolution of regulatory landscape. Today, I do also collaborate with several industry associations, and I'm Global Director for Customer Strategy and Execution with a focus exactly on trading and post-trade workflows in FX and on the relevant regulatory challenges.
Fantastic. And how does that your role day to day interface with kind of compliance responsibility and communications data capture specifically?
Yes, I had the privilege of living and being part of the financial markets evolution in the last 20, 25 years and witnessed it, the growing relevance of regulations as one of the key driving forces shaping financial market practices, its technological infrastructure, but also influencing trading and communication behaviors. Exactly that push for greater transparency brought me closer to the vast landscape of directives, regulations, codes of conduct across communities and jurisdictions, where proper record keeping and compliance and conduct risk management have become essential to every organization active in financial markets. And I would say essential to a safer, well functioning, and robust financial market overall. Now, at the very heart of the foreign exchange market, where I worked a lot, there was and still there is a big community, so-called FX dealing one, with two counterparties basically on the network chatting, and a ticket being extracted based on that chat, and a trade being generated based on that exchange of information. That bilateral chat is a pure conversation, which needs to be properly conducted in line with best practices, conduct principles, and industry standards. And as a consequence, needs to be securely stored and made available for any audit or investigation, any kind of potential trading activity issue or misconduct case. Similarly, the FX community has leveraged and still leverages a great industry code of conduct, the FX Global Code, which clearly states how market participants should communicate with other market participants through approved methods of communication that allow for, and I quote, traceability, auditing, record keeping, and access control. So all of this kind of kept me very close to communication data capture and compliance functions.
Just for the benefit of our listeners, those kind of bilateral chats and the conversations and data therein, which specific regulators might those fall under the kind of attention or purview of, as LSEG is kind of an international agency?
Well, it's a good one. Obviously, if you're using such a service, you are a financial institution. So the relevant authorities controlling those financial institutions in each country have a role in making sure that the way you use it, the way you store information is in line with the existing regulations when it comes to record keeping or any other additional regulation that impacts the financial market.
Thank you, Vince. Over the last couple of years, especially the last sort of 5 years or so, we've seen the rise of platforms like WhatsApp and other social media and communications channels used within financial business contexts. What processes do you think firms need to put in place to ensure the compliant use of those platforms specifically from your experience?
Well, that's an interesting one. And I will try to split your question in the two main blocks you highlighted. On one side, you had a clear reference to the evolution of communication behaviors, and then you mentioned the processes required to be compliant. Let's start from the evolution of the communication behaviors. And I think we can all agree on how deeply our communication standards evolved and changed compared to 10 or 5 years ago. We communicate more, we do it faster in a synchronous way, and we have plenty of choice on the channels we can use, from text messaging to WhatsApp to LinkedIn, Instagram, and the list can go on and on. And I think each of us on this interview can possibly have 5 to 10 channels available on our mobiles. So all the three variables, volume, velocity, variety, accelerated. When we transpose and move this trend into the context of financial markets, well, there is no much difference compared to our private lives. Definitely our life and our workflows improved. We collaborate more, we do it faster. The only big difference is about the additional effort required to recognize and manage a new set of compliance, conduct, and reputational risks within our organization. And this actually brings us to the second section of your question, what needs to be done, right? Which processes need to be activated to have a compliant use of those channels? I would try to simplify at max here, but it's all about first being aware of those risks. That is the first step. And then define what channels are allowed in your organization, what policies, training programs, and technological solutions you need to have in place to guarantee that those channels can safely be used. Record keeping, so storing, here is the first minimum level, especially if there are regulatory requirements, as we mentioned before, to fulfill, to meet. But a key step is also to set up all the required governance framework of policies, processes, checks, escalation paths, especially when your organization spans across several jurisdictions and different laws and regulatory requirements. And once you have set that up, then you may want to consider to extract some value, some additional value out of your investment. And this normally translates into having the capabilities to do at least two things: prevent and react. So being able to detect patterns and behaviors in advance, well before they turn into a real problem, leveraging powerful analytics and preventing the problem before it gets real. That is something that requires an important technological step, the consolidation and the normalization of all the data sources into one single container that then allows you to analyze everything together and recognize patterns and behaviors that otherwise will remain hidden in fragmented, isolated databases. And then the second point, you need to be able to react with quality and speed, and respond to any investigation, providing the answers, the data sets, as quick as possible across all the relevant communication channels involved. And in my experience, that fast reaction is normally very well received by authorities.
Yeah, I think a really important point there about the differences between reactivity and proactivity. And we've seen regulators speaking quite openly about how they would prefer that regulated entities work with them, especially in a very proactive manner, to kind of mitigate maybe some of the circumstances of where things don't go entirely to plan. I think also you kind of made a very valid point on having access and overview of all data in one place, which is becoming much more of a compliance challenge for firms as they deal with a greater number and an ever increasing number of communications channels. I think there's some third-party solution providers out there who rely on data scraping methods to collect communications data. What's your view on relying this as kind of on this as a methodology in order to collect communications data?
That is another interesting one, Jay. You mentioned risk mitigation. Whatever set of policies and technological solution we deploy, the success needs to be read through the lenses of risk mitigation. Now, how successful are we to detect, prevent, recognize, and react to misuse of a communication channel? And when it comes to the solution we have deployed for our e-com surveillance solution, how complex is that, and what level of operational risk it embeds with that complexity? Let's talk about those scraping methods, which can take the shape of a in-house proprietary solution to extract, download data from a database or a source feed which has not been thought, built, or conceived to allow that data extraction. And then once the data is extracted, it may happen that someone needs to upload into a database. Now, who can guarantee the transfer of that data went through without any manipulation? That is a very difficult position to defend within an investigation from authorities. So if you think about it, it matches this scenario of data scrapping. It matches all the risk profiles that we have: operational, compliance, reputational. How confident would you be to rely on such a solution? Again, keeping the logic of straight-through processing in mind, how safer would it be to rely on proper feeds, properly maintained by the provider, possibly natively connected into your electronic communication service or whatever receiving system you want to leverage, with less single points of failure and without any manual intervention or any additional software layer to be maintained? I think simplification and transparency are key elements here in any solution you decide to invest in. So to answer your question, yes, I'm not a big fan of those scraping methods to collect communication data simply because they create additional risks.
For sure. I think minimizing that risk as much as possible is obviously what we're all here to do. The longer a chain is, the more likelihood of there being a weak link in that chain. So direct integration seems like a very kind of savvy move in terms of making sure there are fewer links in that chain and to mitigate any potential risks that those links might cause. Ingesting the data directly through a native connector just seems like a kind of more seamless way to operate and to avoid any kind of issues with ingesting that data. We touched earlier on WhatsApp, and I think we could sit here and we could easily list kind of the legacy communications channels as well as the emerging communications channels that businesses and firms are using for the next half hour or so, but that wouldn't make very good listening. Do you think it's necessary that firms capture every communications channel that they're using? And more broadly, what do LSEG see as a priority? Is it internal or external channels, or a mixture of the two?
That is a fascinating question, and let me try to draw some considerations to answer your question properly. First, the trend in volume, velocity, and variety of e-communication channels is clear. Without a clear policy on what channels are captured, your organization faces unnecessary risks. Would you opt for banning some channels and easily solve the problem at the very root? Or would you prefer staying open and adapting to communication styles and communication channels evolution, providing your organization with the openness, but also clear policies and surveillance solutions? Personally, I think banning is a short-term measure only, and we should stay open and collect all the channels. The second point, if you're not capturing all of the relevant channels, you need to consider that each can pose the same level of risk, right? Whether it's a mail message, a phone call, or a message exchange via social media once or a few times, all pose the same kind of risk. And so it's a kind of a cultural shift. It's not just mail, voice, text messages, and a few others. We use more, and those are growing. So we need to have a policy and a solution in place which keeps adapting and evolving and is open. In essence, from my point of view, it's all about outlining clear policy for the organization, defining the perimeter of the authorized channels, review that list regularly, and deploying an open, agnostic technological solution to capture and consolidate all of the needed channels. Again, I'm personally not in favor of the banning approach. We should stay open, inclusive, working on policies, but also on another key element, which is the cultural element of communication behaviors, providing the right amount of training to employees. That is key to make sure the organization have the tools to comply with regulations, to prevent misuses, and be protected from those unexpected events, which, as we all know, may happen from time to time. Yes, at LSEG, we see this as a priority, and that is why we expanded our collaboration with the great industry player like Global Relay to offer a proper advanced electronic communication surveillance solution to our customers. The voice of our customers and the recent growth in investigations and fines are clearly telling us something about a new trend, some new risks to be managed. The new behaviors in communication styles are clear, and they come with opportunities and new challenges and risks that need to be mitigated. And all of this, and working on this as a priority, contributes to a safer, more efficient, and robust market.
And a safer, more efficient and robust market is definitely what we're all here to try and maintain. I think it's interesting that you highlight the potential for reputational damage that can arise from conduct risk. Obviously, regulatory enforcement and paying fines is one thing, but it's incredibly difficult to regain reputation in the eyes of the market and in the eyes of the general public as well once that particular genie is out of the bottle. I think it's also interesting that you mentioned channel bans as a solution. I think we went through a phase as an industry of firms banning channels, specifically WhatsApp. I'm sure I'm not telling you anything that you don't know, Vince, but we ran a report early in 2023 on compliant communications here at Global Relay, and 59% of those that we surveyed banned WhatsApp, WeChat, and similar channels, even though only 2.6% of respondents to that survey agreed that banning is an effective solution. So it feels very much like kind of a sticking plaster solution to try and fix things quickly, rather than a considered solution that, as you say, embraces all of the aspects of compliance, including culture and conduct. Speaking of channels, I think it's always incredibly difficult for us to try and predict specific channels that might be the next focus for regulators or might pose the next biggest conduct risk. If you have any predictions for the next year, kind of on areas of communications compliance that firms might need to work on or pay particular attention to, what would you say those are?
Yeah, I love that question. No, unfortunately, I don't have that crystal ball, but some key trends are very clear to me. Communication channels will increase and evolve. Video conferencing, voice transcription, social media, think about LinkedIn, those will dominate the scene, as well as technology in providing the computational power and the algorithms, the analytics to analyze an immense set of data coming from different communication channels, chats, mail, voice, social media, and recognize, detect patterns that, as we mentioned before, otherwise would stay isolated and not recognized. Call it artificial intelligence, if you wish so. And why technology and AI can really help to offer new communication channels or help to provide solutions to detect those patterns and prevent misconduct cases. Technology can only support us and be, if you accept this view, the co-pilot in a journey where human beings remain at the very center of the stage. Hence the importance, which I will always stress, of investing in training and education to reinforce conduct and compliance culture, provide clear guidance on how to properly use communication channels, and share information. So whatever channel will prevail in the next coming years, we need to make sure that we as human beings use those channels with the due care and diligence. Similarly, the success of the electronic communication surveillance solutions will be driven by their openness, right? Their ability to directly ingest data from the relevant communication channels, and obviously by their ability to consolidate. That is a very important point. Normalize and analyze with powerful analytics that big set of data. Solving, again, for that fragmentation we see today in the market, with each electronic communication method being archived and or analyzed separately. So losing the opportunity to detect specific patterns. But beside technology, again, at the center of the stage, there is a cultural element at the center of the stage. There are human beings who communicate.
Fantastic points, Vince. I think my takeaway from that is that, slightly ironically, communications compliance is about communication between firms and their employees to foster a compliance forward culture, communication between firms and regulators to ensure that regulations are being followed and implemented and understood correctly, and communication between firms and their place in the market as well. So it's all about communication, I suppose, at the end of the day. Thank you so much for your time and your patience, Vince. Very much appreciated, and wonderful to talk to you as always.
Thanks to you, Jay.
Thank you again to our subject matter expert for joining us. And of course, thank you for listening. Whatever your comms compliance challenge or data dilemmas, make sure you tune in next time and get your solutions and insight straight from the source.